welcome you all to our session on buying from social enterprises. My name is Serra Titiz. I'm a social entrepreneur working in the field of sustainable development, mainly dealing with responsible business and social impact. Last year, Hande and we went to London for the study visit in the scope of the project, and it was a very inspiring visit thanks to Social Enterprise UK's organization. Thank you, Dan, again. So Dan is here with us today. We also have Uygar, a very inspiring social entrepreneur. Myself, I get inspired by his work all the time. Thank you, Uygar, for your time here with us today. So I will be co-hosting this panel with Hande. So right now, I'm giving the word to Hande.
Thank you. Hello, I would like to welcome everyone again. I really appreciate you all for attending to this session. My name is Hande Kara. I'm working at Ankara Development Agency. Today we are going to discuss how we can create social value through buying from social enterprises. This issue is very significant for my organization. As you all know that as a development agency, we are trying to support the social entrepreneurship ecosystem with our financial support mechanism. But we realize that our financial supports are not sufficient alone. So Turkey Social Entrepreneurship Network project gave us a vision with their international practice documents, state-of-art documents, and partners visits and field visits. When we visited Social Enterprise UK, we realized that as a governmental body, we should change our policies regarding social enterprises. We should be more proactive and we should update our advocacy efforts. To that end, we have started to conduct advocacy in Ankara among all ecosystem actors for transformation of the current mindset after Turkey Social Entrepreneurship Network project. And now we will discuss the issue of buying from social enterprises. But first, I would like to take a moment to introduce our guest speakers. Mr. Dan Gregory is here today. He is the Director of International and Sustainable Development of Social Enterprise UK. Our other guest speaker is the founder of Good for Trust, Mr. Uygar Özesmi. They are both very experienced in supporting social enterprises through different mechanisms. Then we know that UK has a very effective tools and policies to support social enterprises. Could you share with us what your organization is doing for social enterprises?
Would you like to share your screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Let me try. You can hear me okay, folks? Yeah? Yeah, good. No, great to be here and to see some friendly, familiar faces. It's really good to be part of this, and it's a shame it's the end of this partnership, but I'm sure there'll be more opportunities in future. So really good to see everyone. Let me try and share the screen. Is that working okay?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, great. And that's, yeah, okay, we'll give it a go. It's good to see familiar faces, so I don't want to bore you with stuff that you've already heard, but just by way of introduction for those that don't know Social Enterprise UK or don't know me, we're based in London, I'm based in the west of England, and we're the national membership body for social enterprise. We have around 3,000 members, and it's growing. I think last time I presented a slide like this, it said 2,000 members. We've been working hard to try and grow also our small members and making it free or cheap for really small social enterprises to join us, because we know that we have strength in numbers. So we're pleased that we're growing our membership. And our job is just to support social enterprises as best we can, to help them to respond to their needs and their aspirations. And that means a range of things. That means some practical support maybe, but it also means policy, research, trying to influence government, which is not always easy, but we try. And particularly market building. I think we've worked more and more in that direction over the years. I should say that as Serra mentioned, I work on sort of international work, and hence knowing some of you guys and working in a range of different countries, which has been fantastic. I don't work directly on all the initiatives that I will talk about today, but I'm probably quite well placed to give an overview. But if I don't know some of the detail, because my colleagues lead on the individual initiatives, then very happy to follow up with talking to them in making introductions and sharing stuff in future. So I don't know everything. The UK has done lots of stuff, but we've got lots of things wrong as well. But hopefully I can share some of the lessons of and give a sense, a perspective of some of the stuff that we've been doing. How do I scroll it down? What's going on?
Press escape.
Okay, is that working? Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
So we've got, our research tells us we think there's 100,000 or so social enterprises in the UK, lots of employees, worth significant amounts of UK GDP, and a lot of our work is on making the case for social enterprise. And with policymakers, politicians, government officials, it's about that evidence. However, I think that actually it makes a lot of sense to focus on Bisocial, because actually in the last 5-10 years, we've moved increasingly towards focusing on awareness raising to the wider world of social enterprise. So yes, we do evidence and policy, but others do that too. Yes, we focus on access to finance and investment, but there's a huge industry in the UK around social investment, getting investment to social enterprises. So we help with that, but we're not the only ones that can help with that. Whereas actually, we're probably the best placed organisation to help people understand social enterprise, to try and get people to fall in love with it, because when they understand it, they maybe sometimes do fall in love with it, to communicate it, to share the knowledge and awareness and understanding of what a social enterprise is and what it can do. So actually, Bisocial and associated campaigns have increasingly become part of our work over 5, 6, 7, 8 years, trying to spread the good news about social enterprise. Let's get through that. Bisocial started a few years ago now, and you can actually see our branding has evolved over time. So the red logo that looks a bit more like a baseball, maybe, that was kind of how we started, and we're now into kind of the new phase. And Bisocial takes 2 or 3 different formats, and there's probably 3 main parts to our work in Bisocial and raising awareness. The first one is around campaigns to the public, to individuals in towns, in cities, across the UK, trying to appeal to people and help individuals understand social enterprise, to influence their spending behaviour in shops, when they buy coffee, when they buy chocolate, when they buy wood, whatever it is that they're doing, spending the pounds and pennies in their pockets to try and influence individual behaviour. The second one is, as you can see the logo here in blue, the Bisocial Corporate Challenge, and that's our work with bigger business. And I can say quite a bit more about that today, because I think that's probably where we've got more evidence and some practical examples of our experience. So that's with business, largely big business, and trying to get social enterprise into the supply chains of big business, influencing procurement, but procurement of corporates, and maybe working with 10, 15, 20 big businesses to get lots of social enterprises into their supply chain. The third one, which I won't say much about today unless you ask, but it's quite a hugely complicated area, and we've talked a bit about before, is buying from social enterprises from public bodies, from government bodies. So it might be regional development agency type organisations, it might be central government, it might be local councils. And we've done a lot of work on that in terms of legislation, the Social Value Act in the UK, which doesn't exactly favour social enterprises explicitly, but it favours them in practice, and it hopefully encourages all procurement and government spending to be more social and environmentally responsible, which should help social enterprises, but also help other businesses themselves to be more socially and environmentally responsible. So the 3 customers of your social enterprises, if you like, individual customers, business customers, and the public sector buying services, we work across all those areas, and I'll say a bit more about the corporates now, but happy to kind of follow up against all of those areas. So the Bisocial Corporate Challenge, This was a partnership with government, and we're very pleased about that. Government everywhere, it does great and terrible things, but you know, it's really important to us to have that clout and that reputation that this is an initiative that government supports. But also I think it's also good that it's not led by government. Having that partnership with an independent body like ours and in partnership with government is quite a nice balance, I think. But it was launched in Downing Street, the Prime Minister's residence. And the aim of a corporate challenge is to get high-profile businesses to collectively spend millions and millions of pounds with social enterprises through their procurement. And I think this has 2 or 3 sort of objectives underneath that aim. High-profile businesses mean we can kind of have a big impact with a few partnerships, but ultimately it's about getting that money to flow through social enterprises. So a lot of our work, to me, feels a bit intangible. You know, we did some evidence, we attended an event, we wrote a report, we met a minister, but actually with this initiative, we can really see, measure in pounds the difference that we've made. So in a way, that's kind of encouraging and keeps us going and inspires us that we are doing something useful. So just a little bit more about, I suppose, how we try and raise awareness. A lot of our work is quite sort of technical and dry, but again, over the last few years, we've increasingly tried to work with high-profile individuals. So some of you may recognise this guy, maybe not. I don't know how famous he is in Turkey. This is Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen is a Welsh actor who has been on TV in the UK for many years, but he's also now in Hollywood films. I think he might be in something like one of the Mission Impossibles or something. So he's very well-known actor, really well-respected in the UK, and has increasingly spent time as a campaigner, campaigning for social justice issues. And we've sort of developed a friendship with Michael, and Michael, if he is on television or on the radio or on his social media account, has, you know, hundreds and thousands of followers and can reach an audience bigger than we can. And is very well respected. So we've worked quite a lot with Michael. This is from a still from a video that we did about socks and how we all buy socks. And therefore, if you can buy socks from a social enterprise, you can make that pound in your pocket go further. And I think that's, you know, there are sort of cheap wins sometimes. Sometimes they, you know, it might feel a bit of an odd mix to work with a celebrity. But we're really delighted that working with Michael, because he's not just a celebrity. We've flown in, he's done a video, he's left again. He gets this. He understands this more than many of us. He's thought a lot about social enterprise and the social economy. So it's great to have a partnership with a high-profile individual and one that's really well respected. Here's another example of, I think, trying to do a couple of things at once. So this was about the Bisocial Corporate Challenge, but we also had these adverts on the underground, on the London Underground. So when you walked into Waterloo Station or Victoria Station or a big station in London and went into the underground, you could see these posters on the walls. And it was explaining that this was a partnership between the government and between us, that it had big corporate business backing, but ultimately it was about improving people's lives. So this is an example of Bellu Water, which is one of our sort of long-standing members and quite famous social enterprise, where you see their water everywhere, in shops, in restaurants and cafes in all towns and cities in the UK, and explaining that actually if you thought about getting your water from Bellu, then you could have an extra social impact. You can see the names at the bottom. These are kind of big businesses, Johnson & Johnson, Santander, PwC, that people have heard of and therefore recognise this is not a small initiative, it's a big initiative. Obviously, this then brings in that kind of question of how do you work with corporates? And, you know, these are quite well-respected corporates, but on the other hand, Santander is a bank, and lots of people, particularly after the financial crisis, don't feel great about the big banks. Interserve was involved in delivering public services, and there were a few scandals around its work. So we have that kind of tension of working with big business is important to make a difference to our members' business models and to have respect and credibility, but also there's a risk of that because of the reputation of some of these big businesses. And actually, some of these big businesses, in a way, are the the opposite of what we're trying to say, which is we want businesses set up for a social purpose, reinvesting profits in the communities, where some of these are a more conventional sort of capital shareholder-owned model of business. So there's tensions there, and we don't always get that right, I think. So the Bisocial Corporate Challenge has been going for a few years now. We continue to work with a sort of 10, 20 partners, business partners, and we're growing that. And we're really pleased that it's sort of continued momentum. It's hard to, you launch these things, and sometimes it's a bit of a campaign, and then you have to start a new campaign. But with the Bisocial Corporate Challenge, I think we've worked really hard at trying to build over time and make it a long-term commitment with our corporate partners. Here they are now, so you can see it's grown from some of the ones before. I think you'll find that a few have disappeared. Interserve, I don't think, are there anymore, but you can see that SAP, you know, this sort of big European unicorn is on there. Other big organizations you might recognize like Motorola and Barclays and Siemens. So, you know, really growing, well-known collection of corporate partners. And what do we do with them? Well, they all sign up to a commitment to try and get social enterprises into their supply chain, to spend more money with social enterprises. The way that we do that takes a range of steps. Sometimes, and I'll come on to exactly how that is, but sometimes it's around working with their procurement officers and working with the people that make the spending decisions in business. Sometimes it's training for all staff. Sometimes it's around policies. Sometimes it's around brokering and introducing corporates to potential suppliers. Sometimes it's around very specific innovative solutions to corporates' needs that they might not recognize. A social enterprise has the solution that they didn't know they needed. And we work closely, I think, trying to sort of hold the hands of the corporate partner, get with them, work with them, and practically work over weeks and months to help make that difference. It's not only a campaign and only an ambition, it's only going to become practically useful and change the supply chains if we're working in and alongside these businesses over weeks and months. So I think, again, we haven't always got that right, but I think we're pleased that we recognise the value of that building over the medium term or long term. You can see the types of businesses that we've been working with. So you can see here there's media production company, there's coffee, there's design and architecture, there's food, there's drink, chocolate, etc. You know, all these businesses at the scale that we're talking, they will have offices with toilets, and they have canteens, and they have need for cleaning facilities, and they do building work. So actually, it's quite diverse, the types of social enterprises that we are able to kind of introduce them to. Say, do you need some soap in your toilets? Do you need coffee in the canteen? Do you need, you know, wood for the bike racks? Do you need all these different things? It's really, really diverse. So these are just 15 examples of the kinds of businesses that that we've worked with. But it's you know, across all areas of the economy, in hospitality, in food, in manufacturing, in creative industries. Nearly there.
Shall we wrap up?
Okay.
We have like 36 minutes left for the whole session.
Okay. So here's, please go and look on our website. You can see the evidence where you can see the money building, and says it much better than I can, but you can see that the amount of money being spent on social enterprises through these corporates has increased over time, and there's more evidence in how that's worked. So yeah, thank you. I'll shut up now, but yeah, it's really great to share that, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys are up to. But if we can help with our experience, then always happy to. So thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, Dan. I was very happy to hear that there's increase in buying behavior in pounds, you said. This is amazing and hopefully promising for Turkey, because we are at the start of starting these kind of new initiatives. Uygar is the initiator of this whole thing. He will present soon. We actually also use celebrities in Turkey to promote these kind of campaigns and to get people become more aware of some social issues. So I'm sure most of our participants felt close about this. I just have one question before Uygar's presentation. Isn't it difficult to choose ethical companies to support in your corporate challenge? Because in Turkey, we are also facing similar things. I mean, it's so difficult to find the company which is kind of innocent, let's say. I mean, not, damaging the environment or somehow, violating human rights. So, I mean, what kind of criteria do you have when choosing the corporates to involve into the challenge?
I might have to check with my colleague whether he has anything formal. Charlie would be a better place to talk about that. But our approach effectively is a sort of negative screening one, where I think we would say, we can't work with those guys. We can't, because they have gone past the point which is kind of unacceptable in terms of, I don't know, behaving, paying tax, or maybe human rights and supply chain, as you say.
Record, you mean? To have a track record in responsible behavior.
No, I think it's more that we would say there's such a risk with these guys, or such a high profile contravention, that we will not work with them, and there's a kind of line. But then this side of the line, we work with anyone. So it's kind of, I think it's a sort of, there's some that are beyond the pale that we couldn't work with, and then we'd work with everyone else. So I think it's, you see people like Interserve is quite hard to explain, but they effectively deliver public services under contract for government, and they've been involved. They're a bit like a G4S or Serco, you might know, and that's quite controversial in many circles, particularly in social enterprise land, of that private profit in public service. So many of our members would say, why are you working with those guys? So I don't think we've always got it right, and I think we've learned. And I'll speak to Charlie and see if he's got anything formal on kind of criteria. But I think we've sort of got a line where some are just too far, but this side of the line, we work with anyone and we try and engage with them. But again, if there's partners that we've got that we can introduce you, if we can make that phone call and say, hey, PwC or Santander, we introduce our colleagues in Turkey to your Turkish office, then very happy to do that if they're acceptable to you and meet your criteria.
Yeah, thank you for this. Another challenge should be selecting the suppliers and having enough suppliers from many sectors, I guess, so that you can promote this as a campaign and get people to buy from these. I mean, you need to have a selection. I'm sure Uygar also has a lot to say about that. It will be a question to him too. I mean, how do you select the suppliers? And at the very beginning, did you have enough suppliers from each sectors? How did this grow?
So we've got lots because of our membership. So this is really good for us because it reinforces our membership. So, I worry that we've got 3,000 members. How do you keep 3,000 members happy? It's just impossible. But actually, if you've got a program like this helps keep more members happy because you're driving business towards them. So as a membership body, we're really well placed to have a program like this because we don't need to go and find members. We've got members. But there's never enough. There'll always be a request from a certain corporate that says we need someone that can work on, taking old computer printers and recycling them for something, and we haven't got one of them, or we've got one in the north of England but not the south, we're always, and I think again it's the benefit of that long-term program that we can build that supplier base over time. If you tried to do this as a one-off initiative, you'd have to start from scratch. You'd go and find them and then you'd lose them again. I think it's that building over time. It helps with that.
It's like a hands-on process, I guess, because all these members and suppliers, they have to, improve their capacity to produce, I guess, when they receive some.
Yeah, the other thing is it also helps us back in building our membership. So if we know that, PwC need a cleaning company in the northeast of England, and then we find a cleaning social enterprise in the northeast of England, but they're not a member, we can actually say to them, hey, we can introduce you and get you some work with PwC, but can you join as a member? So it's kind of actually helps us bring in more members as well. Okay.
Thank you very much. Hande, I think you also have some questions to that.
Yes, I have a question too. And then you gave some information about Bisocial for corporate business. In Turkey, one of the most important buyers is public sector. I want to ask you, how do you raise awareness in the public sector for buying from social enterprises, and what would you advise us as public institution to support social enterprises in Turkey?
Thank you, Hande. It's a really big question. At the moment we're in a funny stage with Brexit, which is really confusing, where particularly there's arguments around state aid law and sort of the way in which government can support certain businesses over others. And I expect you're in a similar position to us, that you're sort of in some ways linked to the sort of EU state aid regime, but not entirely. The problem for us is that effectively EU law UK law means that you cannot really discriminate in the way that government spends money by the type of business. So you can't say, the government wants to spend money on family-owned business and not venture capital-owned business, or cooperative business and not public limited companies. Therefore, because social enterprise is partly about the ownership structure and the way that the organisation is controlled, it's basically been illegal in the UK through, you know, our regime and the EU one, and maybe to a degree WTO, I don't know. You can't say government favours social enterprise over a not social enterprise. Maybe that's fair, maybe that's as it should be. For someone like me that loves social enterprise, that makes it quite difficult to know how to work with government. What we've done, and I think we're really pleased with, was we helped introduce the Social Value Act, and maybe this actually makes more sense, which says if the government is spending money on social care, on a new transport infrastructure, on building a new university, whatever it is the government's spending money on, when it spends that money, they must have social clauses, must give consideration to the additional social and environmental benefit that the organisation they're buying from offers. So it doesn't say social enterprise are better, you must buy from social enterprise, or you must favour this. It says you must score points in the tender or procurement exercise for additional community benefit. Social enterprises will tend to do well with that and score more points, but crucially, it will encourage normal business to also do more to benefit their community in order to win more contracts from government. So I think that's kind of nice in a way. It favours us indirectly, but also encourages all business to be more responsible, which is a good thing. And it's the Social Value Act has made a big difference. It's not perfect, it's taken a long time, but we were delighted that we were able to help shape that legislation. And that law makes a difference. For decades, well, for 10, 15 years, we had ministers from all political parties saying, we want to encourage people to buy from social enterprise. We want to encourage councils to buy from social enterprise. It was a speech by a minister and it didn't change anything. You know, it was just someone in London saying, social enterprise is great, but it didn't affect the behaviour of Manchester Council procurement team. Whereas when we brought in the law, that law did affect the behaviour of Manchester and Bristol and Liverpool and, you know, wherever procurement officers, because they had to think about that law, and it did shift the way that public money is spent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. We have some questions piling up at chat room, but I mean, let's wait for them, and let's first hear Uygar and his organization. Really a very radical and I think life-changing thing is happening in Turkey for the last 3 to 4 years. Let's hear from Uygar. You're on mute, I think, Uygar.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be together with all of you. It's also quite a pleasure to see some of our Good for Trust producer members here. I see Alp, I see Renan, and I see Pınar. If I missed anyone else, apologies.
I will be, so.
Oh, yes, you will be as well. Yes, with the courses. We're excited about that. And we also have a council member, Bilgi Buluş, also with us today. It's wonderful. So I'm also going to talk about essentially what it means purchasing from social enterprises, but deepen the concept a little bit more about what it means for the planet, what it means for us. Currently, we live in a system which we can call consumer economy. Some people call it the capitalist economy. What it does is it does profit maximization at the expense of nature and people. So it harms nature and people in general. The economy does. I mean, just look what happened with COVID-19. The economy took a little bit of a stop and everything went, nature came back, and the planet was in a much better shape. Greenhouse gas emissions dropped. So everything, the culprit, the one who's guilty is our economy. So what do we do? How do we change this economy then into a different economy, which we call the prosumer economy? And what we actually maximize is not profit anymore, but what we maximize is happiness, its social and ecological impact towards a future that we want to go together. So for that, we use the concept of prosumer rather than consumer. So we use prosumer and producer, and we have eliminated the concept of consumer. Because when you look at nature, you don't really see anything that consumes. You see everything which is a prosumer. Essentially, it produces for someone else while using someone else's product. So it's a complete cycle. In nature, when we look at, we see that everything is in a cycle and everything is in an ecosystem. But ecosystem in its meaning, because when you look at this forest ecosystem, there are millions of connections here, and there is a very deepened supply chain where everything feeds into everything else. And this forest, the Amazon forest, for example, has been on this planet for 55 million years, and it has not harmed the planet, and it has been mostly productive. It has been the most productive ecosystem in the world, and it hasn't harmed the planet. So our question is then, how can we build a real ecosystem? How can we build a forest as social enterprises rather than creating this linear, destructive one that we have? And for that, what we did is we created goodfortrust.org. In Good for Trust, we have people we call prosumers, and we have people whom we call producers. Producers are the primary producers of all services and goods, and the prosumers are the ones who are buying these goods and services and thereby actually supporting and transforming the existing system into what we call ecologically and socially just. So anyone can become a prosumer. You just apply into the system, and then to become a producer, you have to first apply and then go through a process and be evaluated by our council. And then if we think that you're making a difference, then you become a member of the platform. So then once you become a member of the platform, you can open up your shop in the shopping district, so to say, your dükkan in the çarşı. These are very sort of small town rural concepts in Turkey, so they don't transfer very good into English. But conceptually, what we're talking is about a community of people who are engaging in trade.
And marketplace trading.
And then the other thing is, whenever you make a purchase, or when you do a good deed, when you volunteer somewhere, when you help out someone, you can write a good deed and share it with everyone, and hence you collect sort of a book of good deeds for yourself in your own profile, and then you will share it with other people, and other people will continue buying, inspired by you doing good deeds or buying ecologically and socially just products. The shop looks something like this. This is a social enterprise. It's called Impact. It is e-waste for good. Essentially, it takes e-waste and repairs it and puts it back into the market. So it doesn't create any waste. And the income goes to the association, which is advocating for the elimination of e-waste. I mean, I bought for our sick mother, her television went broke, so we gave the television to Impact. We got a new repaired television, which she's now using. So we not only saved money, more than half, but also we prevented e-waste. So an electronic television, which would go into an e-waste, we actually had it refurbished and used and put into use, and thereby created an ecological benefit, and also benefit for our old mother, who's spending some better time now. So now, what I'm trying to say is this. To buy good, to buy social or ecological by itself does not change anything if the money circulates back into destructive economies. You become only a conduit. You don't become a change agent. To become a change agent, we really need to create an ecosystem. We need to create a circular economy, a macro scale circular economy, where the supply chain is deepened so that social enterprises buy from each other, and by the money that is harvested through the prosumers from the outside consumer economy, grow this economy inside the existing consumer economy and thereby transform it by eating it. You can think of it as a little culture in a food environment in which it sort of grows, builds synergetic interactions and transforms the system. Right now, we have about 16,000, more than 16,500 prosumer members who are member of the platform, and more than 120 producers, which then come together in this environment. They buy from each other, and they also harvest income through salaries that prosumers will make in the outside economy. And the more we circulate it, the more we get a transformative effect. That's all I have to say. Happy to answer.
Thank you very much. We got great presentation. I actually wonder myself, I mean, how did you start? Who were your first members?
Oh, I think the first member was Gecko, actually. Gecko is a company which produces all organic cookies, does all the purchasing organically and locally in Turkey. So it's a 100% Turkey-produced organic ingredients cookies, which then is also produced through a social environment, essentially only women's workers, which get a living wage, above a living wage, and have very high social standards. Then we had Iva Natura, for example. Iva Natura is again a Turkish cosmetics company, totally organic. All of the ingredients are also sourced in Turkey, and it also helps local aromatic and medicinal plant production by doing what we call contractual growing. So it actually protects the producers through the contractual growing agreements. Another one which I really like, which is actually an international company in this case, is called Humble Brush. They have a buy one, give one mechanism, and it is also bamboo, so it doesn't use plastics, and it's totally, you know,
one question.
And so forth. There are many of them.
Are you the only selling point for these brands, or are they also selling at different stores as well?
We don't want them to be exclusive, because our goal is to help them and to create a channel for them that brings them together as a community. So Humble Brush also sells in local pharmacies and through other channels. Iva Natura actually even exports some of its goods. So no, we are not an exclusive channel. We are a supporting channel in that sense. They can sell everywhere else. And if they sell everywhere else, and the money that they earn selling somewhere else, and then invest it back into Good for Trust, procuring their stuff among social enterprises, this is exactly what we want.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And what is the tendency of buyers? Is it, I saw the numbers grew a lot. I'm 16,500 something, which is great, I think. And how do you get people? And do you campaign? What do you do to attract people to come to Good for Trust?
It's really word of mouth. It's totally word of mouth and social media. We have zero advertising, zero marketing budget. The return on advertising spent is 1 to 4 minimum. So if you spend 25 liras on advertising, you will get 100 liras of sales. We could do that. We don't have the money yet, but if we have more money, we can easily do, you know, advertising and expand. But right now, what we're doing is we're getting a very solid, dedicated people who really believe in this into the platform. And, you know, with time, hopefully, we will expand more. But expansion in this day of age is dependent on your advertising and marketing budget, essentially.
Wonderful, thank you.
I have a question.
Hande also has questions.
Yes. Uygar, I want to ask you, to become a prosumer public sector. How should public organizations support suppliers in your platform?
Well, I mean, just like in Dan's system, any big company or any government agency can do procurement from Good for Trust. The thing is, it's a matter of scale, and it's a matter of how much you can produce. And it's a matter of organizing it. It's a difficult thing. You can't go to a small producer and tell them, give me now 2 tons of, 2 tons of, let's say, tomato paste. The person will say, oh my God, you know, I only have 1,000 tons, you know, I don't have 200 tons of something, you know. It's just like, it's not like they can easily satisfy the big needs of procurement necessarily when they're small social enterprises. Now, do we want big social enterprises? We also don't want big social enterprises, because what we think is like scale produces problems. Like E.F. Schumacher said, small is beautiful. So the government agencies or the larger procurers need to adapt to buying from many small nodes rather than focusing on one if they really want to do good. So in the future, if we have, let's say, 2,000 producers, and out of those 2,000 producers, let's say 200 are tomato paste producers, and the restaurant chain is going to buy tomato paste from them, then they can buy actually from 200 of them rather than buying from one. And that's what needs to develop.
Yeah, thank you.
One last question from me. And about the sectors, I mean, how many sectors do you have right now, and how many more is needed to grow this platform?
Well, I mean, we have so many. I mean, we have about almost everything that one needs. You can even find like organic teas and even coffee right now, although it's imported. Some people won't like that much, but I think it's okay. And then we have textiles. We have, for example, Bego, you know, these very just jeans, which you know quite well from the network. So we have textiles, we have cleaning materials, now wonderful, locally produced, totally ecological cleaning materials, such as Elite and Koala Mother. We have cosmetics, of course. We have even, you know, small furniture. There's like toys. We have lots of courses. Now, it's not only about goods, it's also about services. So we have now many producers who are also selling online courses. Anything from producing mushrooms at home to raising chickens or raising little flies that produce larvae, which then feed the chicken. You know, like there's so many different things. I mean, how many sectors do we need to be fully circular? I don't know. It's going to be deepening as we do. This one very interesting one, it sells, actually, it's called Lacto. It sells material gears for milk production, all ecological and good for the animals, of course, better than the rest, at least. And then we also have, for example, for beekeepers, someone who produces special immunity increasing you know, herbal remedies. So there are many different things. I mean, there's like, so where does it end? How deep can it go? I think it will go as deep as the whole economy is at one point. That's the goal. I mean, it is to deepen and connect organically like a growing forest. When you want a forest, you don't plan every tree you want to have in the forest and every plant and everything where you want. This is not horticulture. I mean, it's not like creating a garden. When you're creating a forest, you start planting trees, and then the forest will evolve. It will start building connections. It will deepen itself, and a new ecosystem will emerge. And if we are not able to have this new ecosystem emerge, which is fully comprising of social enterprises, which are minimizing their ecological and social effect, we are not going to have another planet. That's for sure. I mean, we know the trends. So what we need to do is we need to grow. We need to bring as many ecologically and socially just producers as possible onto the platform, and then knit all of those connections. Since today's topic is about a social entrepreneurship network, we are building a network of commercial activity, of trade.
I'm inviting everyone in this panel at least to be member of Good for Trust from Absolutely. Today on, please.
The other thing, Serra, the first project that I did was Kuşbank. It was a crowdsourcing project, a citizen science project for birds in Turkey. A British organization, the Royal Society of the Protection of Birds, took our project and replicated it all over Europe. And we got World Birds. And World Birds then merged with eBird, and now we have a global system of bird data collection. So my challenge to Dan is, let's replicate.
We start the questions then.
Yeah.
We can't see you, Dan, by the way. Can you put your video on? Thank you. So, Uygar, you can start with the question. He didn't hear it. Did you?
Okay.
I sort of did, but yeah, just say it again, just to make it clear. Sorry.
I'm saying we had a bird data collection system that I developed in Turkey. It was replicated by the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, RSPB, all over Europe, and we called it World Birds.
Yeah.
And World Birds joined eBirds, and now we have a global system of bird data collection. Everyone all around the world, we can do fantastic data collection. We can see trends. It's been a unifying force. And lots of really good stuff is coming out of it, Merlin and so forth. My challenge to you is another British organization, replicate Good for Trust all over Europe, and let's create a global system. Let's have truly a deepened supply chain.
Yeah. No, it sounds great. And I will introduce you to my colleagues who lead on this so we can see how they could come together or be built on. It's interesting though, because I'm very interested in that. And I think too much of what we do is, UK based, and we've tried to share lessons, and, the Bisocial logo now is used in Canada and Sri Lanka and so on. And we're keen to kind of give it and spread it. But I would kind of cheekily mention your point, on one hand, you're arguing about the global. On the other hand, you were talking about Schumacher and small is beautiful. I did an event last week where I had to review Schumacher's Small is Beautiful. And so I had to reread it all and go through it. And actually, I think the title is quite misleading. It was kind of, the title is maybe the title that sells books, or but actually what Schumacher's always talking about is balance between the place for small and the place for big. And that you've got to get the balance right between the two. And at the end, he actually, the punchline or the main thing at the end of the book is about ownership. Actually, large doesn't have to be bad. Often now there are loads of dreadful, terrible, large corporates and multinationals, but it's a bit of a failure of our imagination if we can't conceive that big could be good. And if we can kind of, build social enterprises, build the social economy, build the new economy, then, you've got the examples like the Mondragons and the Italian social care co-ops. You can have big socially owned enterprises. So I agree very much what you're saying about the global. If we can make some of these things, build on them and take them to a larger scale where we can have that global kind of influence, then absolutely, I will try and link you with my colleagues who work on this.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we have 5 minutes left, by the way. By the way, Dan has answered almost all the questions behind the doors.
Try to.
There was one suggestion which I liked very much. Kaan Aksay has proposed it. He says that why not introducing social enterprises and social producers to the State Materials Office? So, okay, let's discuss this with the TSGA team. It's a very good suggestion. Let's see how many producers we can. Maybe with Uygar, we can do this together. We can prepare this. Do you have any other questions? I'm asking the audience right now because Dan actually answered all the questions. Ready here? Okay, there's one, I think, here. What is the target client base for social enterprises is the question. Most of the time they produce with little capacity and they have many taxes. So it's not easy to reach out to bigger clients, I guess. So who is this question addressed to? Fulya. Uygar, maybe?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
Essentially, the problem is prices, and therefore, at the beginning, it's usually upper middle class that can purchase these things. Unfortunately, for the more disadvantaged people, the price ranges are usually out of reach in ecologically and socially just production, because the production costs are quite high, and because they're trying to do everything right, they can't reduce prices. So, I mean, if you're producing based on abiding the tax law, paying all social rights to your workers, giving fair wages, your prices to remain in the business just simply increase. I think these prices will start dropping the more we are there, the more people are actually in the business, the more social enterprises are in the business, and the more the government increases taxes on the bad practices rather than on the good practices. So there's also a public policy component which we shouldn't just throw out of the window. So the onus is not just on us, but it's on the policy environment at the same time. Finally, what we're doing is we have gone into a partnership with Cello Alliance for Prosperity. So with Cello, we are creating our own monetary basis, our own token. Then our prices and the circulating economy will be disjointed from the outside wealth system and will create a different price structure that might also be one way out of it.
It will be like a transient society, actually,
Yeah.
this example. Thank you very much. And then also, maybe you can also say something about how is the situation in UK? How did it evolve?
Yeah, I recognise that about there's lots of small organisations sometimes. I think there is a role for that kind of brokerage and the sort of bringing smaller providers together. So Social Traders in Australia, I mentioned in the comments, is tries to kind of bring smaller businesses together to hook them up to opportunities. And we've had something called 3SC in the UK that was quite a while ago now that was helping small social enterprises delivering public services to come together to get government contracts that they couldn't get individually. So organisations like ours and Social Traders in Australia can help smaller organisations access bigger opportunities. I was going to respond to Uygar on. Yeah, I think that's right about social enterprises can sometimes be more expensive. I think, of course, that's right, but sometimes that's not always the case. It depends on the market you work in. So, sometimes these are the kind of, more expensive items where because people are being paid properly and the materials are ethical and they're paying their taxes and so on, it does cost more. But it's not always the case, because other times, the fact that they're not distributing profits to shareholders and they're putting them back in can reduce the price, or they harness volunteer or community loyalty, or some of the sort of simple business models like wood recycling or selling coffee. It's not noticeably more expensive from the social enterprise. So it depends on the market, of course, and the business model. But yeah, I think that most importantly is that point about people playing that intermediation role and trying to, like us, it's a responsibility on us and our peers around the world to link people up to the bigger opportunities.
We have like 1 minute left, I think. Dan, what is the percentage of your members' economical value to the bigger economy in UK? I'm sure you have this kind of
yeah, of our members it will be tiny, because ultimately we think there's about 100,000 social enterprises in the UK, but we've only got 3,000 members. So we're a small fraction of that. But I think in terms of the value of social enterprises to the UK economy, it's probably still only kind of 2-3% or something. It gets complicated whether you count trading charities, whether you count big cooperatives.
We'll end in 10 seconds, by the way. Very sorry about that.
Yeah, 2 or 3% probably. But please look on the website. We've got a good report about that. about the scale.
Thank you very much. And this session is recorded, by the way, guys. And thank you very much for everyone.